And we are back in recording. And I wanted to explain why this does not neatly fit in my website, kingofmylittleworld.neocities.com, which I pay for as a domain service. To clarify, it's not. I'm not being a cheapskate. Well, it's $5 a month, but nonetheless. And so I wanted to explain something that does not neatly fit on my website. You see, my website pertains to matters of philosophy, ideology, fiction, and whatnot, whilst this matter is economic in principle. And so, I want to explain the detriment of communism on a nation. Well, fundamentally, I suppose we should begin with the fact that communism undermines the sanctity of liberty, which I perceive to be a sacrosanct of any good republic. And so you essentially have this overarching state, which is necessary, a vital prerequisite really for the distribution and reallocation of wealth and land and whatnot, right? Of course, we're not talking about just like the voluntarism and mutualism because that just slots into Hoppianism. Because if people really wanted to, they could form a communist commune, but it would coexist with capitalist communes. So, yeah. So that's why we're only going to be discussing the more rigidly Marxist states and why they don't work. You see, you need an overarching sort of state power to direct all of this because people usually don't want to give up their things for free unless they're very radically Christian, but that's more of a Catholic and Eastern Orthodox perspective, which is not very shared in places like America or just much of the Western world, which is largely Protestant. And so that is why you would need some kind of overarching state. But even in these more Protestant these more Catholic nations or Orthodox nations, you have a religion which emphasizes charity and whatnot and personal volition in allocating goods. So Catholic theocracy isn't exactly going to be very fond of stealing from somebody to help another. It's more voluntary charity. But back to my original point that, well, it comes down to the question, how are you going to really distribute this wealth if people aren't going to do it amongst themselves? And so they say some kind of overarching state who distributes all the money. Where's the money coming from? Well, they say from taxes, which ultimately itself is theft. However, if they say something more like, if they're more like a more charitable Marxist who doesn't realize their ideology is a theft or hasn't really looked into it that much, they're going to say, oh, we're going to redistribute the grain, we're going to redistribute the houses. Houses will be free for everybody, while neglecting the labor deficit. You see, the labor deficit is this... You see, I'm trying to think of how I can... Let's say... I want to pay somebody. I give them $20. I give them $20 for their labor. Yeah. But if I'm just going to say, well, everybody deserves this product for free, if everybody deserves this, I'm going to go to a game manufacturer and say, BioShock Infinite, you make BioShock Infinite, but I believe everybody is entitled to a copy of BioShock Infinite, and so I'm just going to take it from you. I'm just going to steal it from you and start just giving it out to everybody. Start giving out copies to everybody because I believe everybody's entitled to it. Yeah, it's theft. Or, alternatively, there's the forced labor route, where communists, instead of contracting others to produce goods free of charge, thieving from them, they instead just force people to work. But I feel that really goes to the fundamental point of why communism itself is an immoral system. Because under a communist state, under a more traditionally Marxist-Leninist state, like in the Soviet Union, you are property of the state. You are not uh, a free individual with his own volition to conceive and construct private businesses, to set your own wages, to set your own destiny, to really live freely. Instead, you are the property of the state. You work for the state. The state employs you. The state pays you in meager wages you can only spend on state goods. Fundamentally, you are a serf. You are functionally a serf. You work for nothing but the state. You work for you do not work for yourself, and this is believed to be a moral imperative under the communist system, which is why I oppose it, because I'm opposed to this organization of society into serfdoms. This is why I oppose feudalism. Although I do believe that feudalism is actually more of a, if we beholden it to similar standards, we behold communism. In my perspective, feudalism is actually a bit more morally respectable and is not as egregiously objectionable as communism, because at least under some kind of feudalism, at least somebody's getting some kind of benefit who aren't, you know, just state elites. This would be, like the mercenaries and the craftsmen and free peoples who are neither free peoples, who are not serfs, but are also not, craftsmen, artisans, or whatnot. However, under communism, everybody is of the state. Everybody is employed by the state, and the state is fundamentally an apparatus which stifles the liberty of mankind. The only ones who really benefit from this is the state themselves, who get to reap all the benefits of the goods, while the people are involuntarily made to do the labor of the state. Whereas this contrasts starkly with a capitalist society, as a capitalist society would fundamentally oppose this system, being an entirely voluntary system in which goods and services are interacted with some kind of resource-backed currency, ideally. And this currency, sorry, has value, or at least perceived value, and people are voluntarily willing to trade it amongst each other for goods and services, and everybody wins. To explain, the labor deficit, let's say, I already used Bioshock Infinite. Let's say I have Dead Space, yeah? Well, game manufacturer says he wants $100 for every manufactured, not $100, wants $20 to manufacture it. Wants $20 to manufacture it, yeah? And so, I give the game developer $20, yeah? Out of my pocket. And so, then, with that in exchange, I get the game, but now I need somewhere to live too, yeah? And so I have a copy, and then I sell it, I in a convenient manner, instead of just going directly to the manufacturer, I sell it as a publishing studio who gives the game widespread appeal, more than it would have had if it were just relegated to the studio. And so I put it in a store, and I say, hey, consumers, buy this game. And so I'm selling it. Now I need to cover this cost, yeah? However, I also need to make money, yeah? And the employees need to make money, yeah? Employees don't work as hard as me or the game manufacturers, so they get a little less. So they get a bit less. They're not working as hard. They're just more or less standing about to sell it. it's a ring of customers, and so I charge $50. The customer gives me $50. 20. I I I get back my $20, which I had already given to the game manufacturer, and then the game manufacturer gets his $20. I get my $20, and the employee gets $10, or maybe we could, like split it between, like 15-15. I get $15, employee gets $15. Either way, and then the customer gets his game. Everybody wins. Whereas under a communist system, game manufacturer, I say, you made Dead Space. I'm just gonna take it, and then I'm gonna sell it back, and then I'm gonna give it to somebody else, to the customer, so to speak, without charging anything. So I've stolen it from you, and I haven't made myself a profit. Or alternatively, you could just put a gun to somebody else's head after giving the customer their copy of Dead Space. You just put a gun to somebody else's head. I don't know if I have a prop gun anywhere. And you say, give me all your money now, so you can reimburse yourself. That's fundamentally how the communist system works, which is why it is wrong, which is why it is immoral, as theft is a fundamental immorality. If you check out my website, you'll find in my sayings, my aphorisms, why I believe in immorality and why I am a moral absolutist and a libertarian. It's my sayings by me. Of course, I'm not going to state my name because you can find that on my website. And so, my goodness, these are remarkably synced. But that's just my philosophy on communism, so to speak. I'm just a post. I might upload another video soon enough. Although this might work better as a paper. I'll write a paper first, publish it on my website in the theology section about why I think essentially that Christ does not have a human soul, but rather is a perfectly divine being without a human soul, and is merely the divine essence within the shell of a human body, right? And so the human body, which lived sinlessly, is sacrificed for the salvation of mankind. And of course, why I think the Trinity is the replacement for the Sephiroth, the Kabbalistic interpretation, because Western esotericism and Neoplatonism. Although Neoplatonism doesn't really have a equivalent of the Sephiroth. But yeah, I think that's it. I'll publish a different video after this one. I'll record it like just minutes after this one, explaining some irrelevant things. Yeah. Thank you. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and check out my website. Thank you. Bye-bye.